You're looking at what might be the craziest neighbor from hell story ever told. This is the moment a woman's plan to ruin her new neighbor's party backfired in the most spectacular way possible. Her name was Karen, and she sent 3 entire bus loads of strangers to her neighbor's house just to shut the party down. What she didn't count on was that everything was being filmed, and her little stunt was about to land her in some very hot water. To understand how it got to this point, how one person's unbelievable entitlement led to a full-scale police response and her own public humiliation, we have to go back 2 months, to the day a young couple thought they had finally found their perfect home. A couple named Ben and Chloe had been saving for years. They weren't asking for much, just a little slice of peace, a yard for their dog, and enough space so they wouldn't have to hear their neighbor's TV through the walls. Ben worked from home as a graphic designer, so a quiet environment wasn't just a preference, it was a necessity. Chloe, a freelance writer, felt the same way. Their tiny city apartment had served its purpose, but they were more than ready to move on. After a long 6 months, they found it. A beautiful, single-story ranch house on a 1-acre lot at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac. The neighborhood was established, full of mature trees, and best of all, had no homeowners association. They'd heard enough horror stories about overbearing HOAs and wanted no part of that world. To them, the freedom to paint their door whatever color they wanted was the very definition of luxury. The house was perfect. The centerpiece was the huge backyard, a blank canvas of green grass begging for a barbecue. They signed the papers so fast their agent could barely keep up. The first few weeks were bliss. They painted, unpacked, and started planning their garden. They met the neighbors on their left, a young family who was thrilled to have a new dog to play with. And on their right was Karen. Their first meeting was odd, to say the least. They were wrestling a flat-pack bookshelf into the house when she marched across her perfect lawn, clipboard in hand. She was a woman in her late 50s with a severe haircut and an expression that suggested she'd just smelled something foul. "I'm Karen," she announced, not as a greeting, but as a statement of authority. "I'm the block captain." Covered in sweat and cardboard dust, Chloe and Ben exchanged a look. "Block captain?" Chloe asked with a tired smile. "Oh, that's nice." "We're Chloe and Ben." Karen's eyes didn't soften. They scanned the yard, the U-Haul, and a stack of empty pizza boxes. "I see that," she said. "I'm here to give you the neighborhood welcome packet and go over the community standards." Community standards? Ben thought it was strange since there was no HOA, but figured it was just a list of local numbers. He reached for the folder. "These are voluntary, of course," she said, but her tone made it clear she didn't see them as optional. "But we all find that following these guidelines maintains our property values." It wasn't a list of numbers. It was a multi-page, laminated document detailing everything from lawn height to holiday decoration timelines. It was basically an HOA rulebook, just without any legal power. Thanks," Ben said, trying to hide his disbelief. "We'll definitely read this." "See that you do," she replied, her eyes narrowing. "We take pride in this neighborhood. We don't want to see it go downhill." She then spun on her heel and marched back home, leaving them stunned. "Block captain?" Ben whispered to Chloe. Chloe just shook her head and laughed. "I think we just met the reason this neighborhood doesn't have an HOA. She is the HOA. They should have seen it as the massive red flag it was. But they were so in love with their new home, they just laughed it off. Every neighborhood has a quirky neighbor, right? They had no idea this woman was about to turn their peaceful dream into a living nightmare. For the next month, Karen's behavior was more laughable than anything else. She'd leave passive-aggressive notes taped to their door, never in the mailbox. Of course, about how their garden hose wasn't coiled in a visually pleasing manner, or printouts about how dandelions are weeds. The other neighbors seemed to have a system for dealing with her. They'd smile, nod, and then completely ignore her. Ben and Chloe tried to do the same. They were polite but distant, hoping to just fly under the radar. The real trouble started about a month in. They'd finally unpacked and decided it was time for a housewarming party. Nothing wild, just 30 or so friends and family to celebrate their new home. Being considerate, they decided to give their immediate neighbors a heads up. The young family to their left was delighted for them. Then, with a deep breath, Ben walked over to Karen's. He rang the bell, and she opened the door a crack, her face a mask of suspicion. "Karen, hi," he said with his best smile. "Ben from next door." "I know who you are," she clipped. "Right. Well, I just wanted to let you know we're having a small housewarming party a week from Saturday. We'll keep the music down and wrap things up by 10:30. I just didn't want you to be surprised by the extra cars." He expected a stiff, "Thank you for letting me know." What he got was a look of pure horror. "A party?" she whispered, as if he'd just announced plans to build a meth lab. "Yes, a small get-together to—" "Absolutely not," she cut him off. "This is a quiet residential street. We don't have parties here." Ben was floored. "I'm sorry. Parties bring noise, traffic, and unsavory elements," she declared. "I will not have it." He couldn't believe it. "Karen, I assure you our friends are not unsavory elements. It's just a barbecue." "A barbecue," she scoffed. "That means smoke. What about my laundry? I have a very delicate wash cycle on Saturdays. The smoke could ruin my whites. This had to be a joke. I'm not sure what to say, Karen. We live here. We're allowed to have guests." That was the wrong thing to say. Her face hardened into granite. "You are new here," she said, her voice low and menacing. "You don't understand how things work. As block captain, it's my duty to protect this neighborhood. If you insist on having this event, I will be monitoring. The slightest infraction and I will be calling the police. Do you understand me?" The threat was so blatant, so absurd, that Ben was speechless. His attempt at being courteous had just become a declaration of war. "I understand you've made your position clear, Karen," he finally said, his own voice now cold. "And I've made mine. The party is happening. Have a good evening." He walked away, his heart pounding. The friendly heads-up had become the inciting incident. The line had been drawn. Chloe met him at the door, her face full of concern. "How did it go?" she asked. "Well," he said, taking a breath, "I think we just officially met the final boss of all Karens." But neither of them was laughing. They both knew this woman wasn't just quirky. She was a problem. A big one. The week before the party was a masterclass in psychological warfare. Karen's harassment went from passive-aggressive to actively hostile. It started with small dead branches left on their welcome mat. Just plausible enough to be an accident, but they knew better. Then came the surveillance. Her living room window became her command post, blinds perpetually angled for a perfect view. If Ben was mowing the lawn or Chloe was watering flowers, they could feel her watching. 3 days before the party, things escalated. A patio set Ben ordered was delivered, and Karen was on her porch in a flash, phone out, taking pictures. As soon as the truck left, she marched over. "What is this?" she demanded, pointing at the boxes. "It's a patio set, Karen," Ben said, his patience wearing thin. "Is it commercially rated? Some cheaper sets can leach chemicals into the groundwater?" He just stared at her. "It's from a major retailer, Karen. I'm pretty sure it's safe. And I'm also pretty sure that's none of your business." The next day, they found an official-looking, formal notice of nuisance violation taped to their door. It cited anticipated excessive noise and unapproved large-scale social gathering and threatened a $200 fine. It was completely fake, a fantasy document from a woman losing her grip. Ben ripped it off, marched over to her house, and confronted her. She opened the door with a smug look. "Yes?" He held up the notice. "What is this, Karen?" "You have no authority. This is harassment." Her smug look didn't budge. "It's a formal warning. When the police come on Saturday, they'll see you were warned." "You are unbelievable," he said. "Stay away from our house. Do not come on our property again." "I don't have to come on your property," she said with a chilling little smile. "There are other ways to maintain order." That sentence hung in the air. Chloe was getting seriously distressed and suggested canceling, but Ben refused. "No," he said, his resolve hardening. "We are not going to be bullied in our own home." That's when he decided to take precautions. He set up a couple of old Wi-Fi security cameras, one on the front porch aimed at the street, and another in the backyard. He figured she might try to pull some stunt like turning on her sprinklers. He had no idea the evidence he was about to capture would be so much more insane than anything he could have imagined. The day of the party was perfect and sunny. Friends started arriving around 3 p.m., and the atmosphere was exactly what they'd hoped for, relaxed and happy. The music was quiet, the parking was considerate. For the first 2 hours, everything was perfect. He kept an eye on Karen's house, but it was quiet. Too quiet. He allowed himself to relax. Maybe she had finally given up. How wrong he was. It was just after 5 o'clock. Ben was at the grill flipping burgers when he heard a deep rumbling sound. Not a car. A diesel engine. He looked toward the street. His heart stopped. Pulling up to the end of the cul-de-sac was a massive charter bus. Then a second. And then a third. 3 enormous charter buses were now parked bumper to bumper, completely blocking the street. The doors hissed open, and a tidal wave of strangers started pouring out. They were loud, carrying their own drinks and heading directly for the party. Ben's friends and family froze. "Ben, what is happening?" Chloe cried, her eyes wide with terror. This army of strangers, easily over 100 of them, swarmed into the backyard. One group raided the cooler, another descended on the food table. A guy with a portable speaker blasted bass-heavy music, drowning out their chill playlist. Ben ran toward the front and grabbed the first person he could. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" The guy looked confused. "This is the free block party, right?" He held up his phone, showing a screenshot of a Facebook event. Epic end of summer block party blowout. It listed Ben's address and promised free food, drinks, and a DJ. Ben's blood ran cold. This was Karen's other way to maintain order. It was diabolical. She hadn't just tried to get their party shut down. She had hijacked it, inviting an army of strangers to create the very chaos she'd accused them of planning. Within minutes, their 30-person get-together was a mob of nearly 200. Strangers were trampling Chloe's flowers. People wandered into their house as if they owned it. Ben ran inside, screaming at people to get out. His own guests were huddled in the kitchen, terrified. The dog was barking uncontrollably. It was a full-blown invasion. And then, looking out the window, Ben saw her. A silhouette in her front window, partially obscured by the blinds, just watching. He could have sworn he saw the flash of a triumphant smile. That was it. Fear turned into cold, hard determination. She wanted a scene? She wanted the police. She was about to get them. His hands shaking, Ben grabbed his phone and dialed 911. 911, what is your emergency? "My name is Ben," he said, his voice tight with fury. "I live at 123 Oak Street. My neighbor has intentionally sent over 100 people to my property to trespass and destroy it. She hired 3 buses. You need to send officers here immediately. This is not a party. It's an orchestrated public nuisance. I have it all on video." The 10 minutes it took for the police to arrive felt like an eternity. The chaos had reached a fever pitch. A fight broke out near the grill. Then the sirens wailed. A wave of relief washed over Ben as 4 police cruisers blocked off the street. A stern-looking officer approached him. "What in the world is going on here, son? We got a call about a riot." "Officer, thank God," Ben said, his voice shaking. "This is my house. We were having a small party. My neighbor," he pointed a trembling finger at Karen's house, "is responsible for all of this. She hired these buses and posted a fake party online at my address." The officer looked skeptical. "Your neighbor hired 3 buses?" "Yes. I know it sounds insane, but I have security footage." Ben pulled out his phone and showed the officer the video of the buses arriving and the river of people pouring out. The officer's eyebrows shot up. He called over his partner. "Hey, take a look at this." The second officer's jaw dropped. They realized Ben wasn't a homeowner who'd let a party get out of control. He was the victim. The first officer's demeanor changed completely. "Where is this neighbor?" "Right there," Ben said, pointing. He and his partner started walking toward Karen's house just as she stepped out, holding her clipboard like a shield and wearing a practiced look of concern. "Oh, officers, thank heavens you're here," she called out with fake sincerity. "This has gotten completely out of hand. I warned him this would happen." The officer didn't stop. "Ma'am, we have reason to believe you are responsible for this gathering." Karen feigned shock. "Me? I'm the one who's been trying to prevent this." "I'm the block captain." "We've seen video footage, ma'am," the officer said flatly. footage of 3 charter buses arriving. We also have a screenshot of a public event advertising a party at this address. We'd like to ask you a few questions. The blood drained from Karen's face. I don't know anything about any buses. It was a pathetic lie. While 2 officers questioned her, another went to talk to the bus drivers. Within minutes, the story was confirmed. The drivers, not wanting to be implicated, quickly stated they were chartered by a woman matching Karen's description. One even had a receipt. Trespassing can be both a civil and criminal offense. The officer walked back over to where Karen was standing, her face now a pale shade of gray. "Ma'am, you've been identified as the individual who hired these vehicles," he said. "You have incited a public nuisance. You are responsible for mass criminal trespassing, and you have filed a false police report. At this point, I need you to place your hands behind your back." A gasp went through the crowd. You're arresting me?" she squeaked. "But I'm the victim here." "That's not what the evidence suggests, ma'am," the officer said, clicking the handcuffs around her wrists as he read her rights. Watching Karen, the self-appointed queen of the cul-de-sac, being led away in handcuffs from her own perfect yard was one of the most surreal and satisfying moments of Ben's life. The look of utter defeat on her face was worth all the chaos. The other neighbors peeked out of their houses, their faces a mix of shock and, frankly, a little bit of glee. The reign of the block captain was officially over. With Karen in custody, the police used their car's loudspeaker to disperse the uninvited crowd, who quickly piled back onto the buses. Within an hour, the street was quiet again. Ben and Chloe's real friends immediately sprang into action, helping them clean up the mess. The lawn was trashed, and some of Chloe's rose bushes were ruined, but thankfully, nothing inside the house was seriously damaged. The legal aftermath for Karen was severe. Faced with undeniable evidence, she reportedly took a plea deal that included 2 years of probation, a hefty fine, and court-mandated anger management classes. Ben and Chloe also filed a civil suit for damages and emotional distress. The judge, after seeing the footage, sided completely with them. The social fallout for Karen was just as devastating. News of her bizarre scheme and arrest spread like wildfire. She became a pariah in the very neighborhood she tried to rule. About 6 months later, crushed by legal fees and social ostracism, Karen put her house up for sale. The day the moving truck came, Ben and Chloe sat on their new patio furniture on their fully recovered lawn and just watched. They didn't feel smug. They just felt an immense, profound sense of relief. The new family that moved in is wonderful. They have 2 dogs that play with Gus, and their first words upon meeting Ben and Chloe were, "So we hear we missed a pretty epic party." It's funny how things work out. They bought the house for peace and quiet, and for a while it felt like they'd found the opposite. But by standing their ground, they ended up getting exactly what they wanted. Their home is their sanctuary again. And every time Ben fires up the grill, he's reminded of the simple lesson Karen was forced to learn the hard way. If you play stupid games, you will absolutely win stupid prizes. So that's the story of how one neighbor's insane plot to ruin a party backfired and ended up ruining her own life instead. It was a chaotic and frankly ridiculous experience, but in the end, justice was served. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more about entitled people getting what they deserve, make sure to hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe for more stories. Thanks for watching.